Well, welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It is by way of Zoom when we're doing it, man. It's so good to see you. Man, I love that orange piece you have on today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's summer colors, you know.
Yeah, I see. And knowing you get the full extent of summer. That's a great thing. Let's talk about our sponsors before we move on. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Lee Crossell and Crawley has been with us for almost over 2 years now. We want to thank them for being with us. Fervent Care Christian Academy is always with us. Thank them for being with us. Marion County Public Health Department, who's doing an outstanding job in Marion County at this particular time based on COVID-19. Not only that, but we have Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes with us as sponsors. All four of those sponsors are with us today, and we want to thank you for tuning in.
And certainly we thank God for all of those of you who are watching, and those of you who are watching the replay, whether you're watching the replay on YouTube, WHMB TV 40, or if you're watching there on Facebook. Thank you so much for being part of our broadcast. And of course, while you're on Facebook, please
like us. Please like us. We need to be liked, because if you don't like us, we're going to have a rough time. So we pray you'll like us in the endeavors of Real People, Real Voices.
Coming up in our show is Kendall Adams. He'll be joining us, IMPD. Deputy Chief Kendall Adams, to talk about some things that you're probably interested in knowing about, those of you who are watching. He's going to answer some of those questions and talk to us about what they're doing to help keep us safe in Marion County. We have some messages to share with you, and we'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And we're joined by Deputy Chief Kendall Adams of Performance and Policy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, pastors. Good to see both of you.
Thank you. We're very proud of you and the things that you have done, how you've matriculated with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and all the things that God is doing through you. We pray that God will continue to guide you as well as the entire command staff to protect our city. Of course, we've got body cameras coming out. This has been something that has been inquired about for quite some time. We've seen it in the news media, and we can expect those body cameras out this summer. So how's that going?
It's going pretty good, Pastor. We are in the midst of retrofitting uniforms and preparing for training and preparing to retrofit our cars for the 1,100 body cams that are in shipment now. And so we've been working with the vendor. As a matter of fact, today we met with the vendor to review some of our roll call sites that will have basically a cellular site there that they can upload the video. As you can remember, when we started the program, Chief Roach wanted to ensure, and Chief Taylor has continued that process, that we try to take the error out of the human, right? Because humans sometimes forget to turn on for whatever reason. Sometimes those are legitimate reasons, but the bottom line is sometimes you forget that. So a part of our pilot program discovered that there was a company that has technology that eliminates that need, and it's all done by triggers. So when an officer turns on his lights, camera comes on. He or she doesn't have to do anything. When an officer falls down, camera comes on. The officer starts to run, camera comes on. So those triggers help the system be automatic. Okay. And you'll start seeing those cameras out, and we'll start training in August. We'll have an official rollout probably in October, but really as early as August, those first series of cameras will start rolling.
Question, how's the policy with these cameras?
The policy is being It's an SOP, and we did that purposefully because we know that the policy will change. What we start with today may have to be changed, 6 months from now. And so, in order to do that, we created an SOP. If we create a general order, we have to go back to the general orders committee. So we created an SOP that is very similar to, I think, what I shared with you in the pilot, Pastor Moore. And we just vetted that with a few community members that took a look at it and said that it lacked some accountability. And so we built some measures in to ensure that there is some accountability in the policy. Now, specifically, I think we've talked offline, Pastor Moore, about the release of the body cams. I mean, that's really what most of the community typically what the questions I get. And so, as you know, the body cams, the videos themselves are public record. There are 4 exceptions that allow a police agency to withhold that release, but the body cams themselves are public record. Now, one of the things that the group has suggested to us, and I've heard this from you, Pastor Moore, so I actually give you credit, was we know that there are going to be some videos that cannot be released for investigative reasons, right? It could impact a trial. So what we're developing is a small group that Chief Taylor will be able to sit down with and say, here's the video. The other thing we're working on is trying to hire a videographer that maybe can put together a video of the witnessing officers, so not the involved officer, but maybe the witnessing officers, to kind of give some context to the incident itself. So those are 2 areas that we believe provide some amount of transparency. Now, having said that, if it's just an officer who uses foul language, for example, on a traffic stop, I can tell you that Chief Taylor is not going to withhold that release. He's going to release those kind of videos. It's only the videos that the prosecutor's office or some other prosecuting agency would not want us to release in fear that you could jeopardize the criminal trial. So.
Okay. Based on that, these small committees that you're going to be putting together to work with this program, what would that consist of?
Just community members. We both did it internally and we did it externally. And we started with this first group. We're going to share the policy with the second group as well to try to get, because every time, unfortunately, every time we pull a group together, they say they're not the right people. So what we figured is we try at least 2 or 3 different groups to share the policy with, to try to hit all those different groups or all those different interests. So we went with this first group, and we just did it a couple weeks ago, and shared with them both our policy and our we're putting together a PowerPoint so community members can digest the information. We shared both those documents with them, and they gave us some feedback. So now we'll go to this second group of just community members we pull together to share the policy with.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned the triggers by which these cameras are going to be activated. It sounded like they will only be activated during emergency runs, or will the triggers be activated anytime an officer engages someone from the community?
Yeah, so good question. So I think there's 7 triggers. One is if the lights go on, again, if officer falls down, officer starts running. There's a couple more triggers but an officer, the equipment comes with a wristband, and that wristband has a stop and a start function. So the way it's in our policy, anytime an officer is interacting with a community member, they have to start the recording. Now, community member can say, hey, can you stop that? It's not a contentious situation. So really, any run that an officer receives, he or she is to start that recording if it doesn't automatically trigger on its own. And so the feedback we got from the community group is they're a little nervous about the officers having that ability, but in any system, the officer's going to have the ability to push it on or stop it. I mean, that's automatically built into it. Our particular system, the triggers help eliminate that need, but should they need to start it as they're talking to a community member, they can do that with the wristband.
Are you at liberty to talk about those community groups that are helping you with this?
Yeah. What you mean, talk about specifically who they are?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't ask them if I could share their names, but
The reason why I've asked is because are they out there understanding what's going on in the community? Or are they just handpicked by the administration or handpicked by the chief? I mean, are these people really at the grassroots level understanding what the pulse of the community is? That's what my concern.
And let's stick a pin there, Dr. Moore. We are just about out of time for this segment. And Deputy Chief, when we come back, if you can answer that question. And for those of you who are watching, we're excited that you're here. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we're joined by Deputy Chief of Policy and Performance, Kendall Adams. Again, thank you for joining us on today.
thank you.
Before the break, Dr. Moore asked a question, and Dr. Moore, if you could re-ask that question, if you would, please.
I think my concern was, as a community servant, is those who are on these committees, are they rooted and grounded in the atmosphere that is taking place within the community, so they can make the right decisions for those particular settings and the community as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Pastor Moore. And I think we tried to pick people that don't necessarily agree with IMPD. We tried to pick young people. We tried to pick faith-based. We tried to pick community activists. And again, that's why I personally picked the first group. I'm gonna personally pick the second group. And the reason we're doing two groups, and just a point of clarification, they're not committees. These are just people that wanted to have a voice. People that have criticized IMPD, me in particular, I had on the call because I think it's important that we hear their voice. But again, we're picking a second different group of community members that will do the same, review the policy, review the PowerPoint, give us feedback, and then we'll try to incorporate those things that we can. We did that with the first group in about an hour, and we'll do that with the second group. The second, when we have the conversation with the community group, it's not for us to defend what we have thus far. It really is to hear the feedback from the community. For example, the first group said in the policy, it said, officers will activate their cameras in these particular situations when feasible. And the community groups were concerned. They said, why feasible? Just take that out, right? So we went back as a team, said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to put it in there. We put that in there because we know there are going to be times when officers don't activate it for legitimate reasons. Sometimes you get out, start running, you don't think about the camera. Or vice versa with these automatic triggers. I think the thing we have to think about is officers will think, well, I turned on my lights. I thought it was on. I didn't know that the camera wasn't on. So these are things that we have to think through as we begin to roll out these body cameras. One of the things I told the first group, this is technology. It will fail. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is not 100%. It cannot replace our efforts to build trust and transparency in our community. It is just one more tool in the toolbox, but it is not going to, it is not the panacea.
No, and I agree with you. I don't know if, but I agree with you. I think it is just one of those situations to help people cope through difficult circumstances as it relates to law enforcement and community.
Yes.
The trust level has to be built based on personal relationships.
That's right.
And the authenticness of relationships. And that's where I am with that. But no, this body cam is not going to fix all. It's not going to fix
Right.
the emotions that are going through the community now, the disconnect between law enforcement and community. That connect has to come at the table and be legitimate and talk things out and move in a way to where it's going to be beneficial, which a lot of people don't agree with, for community and police officers. I'm under the impression that police reform has two aspects to it. It has to reform the police department and also reform and inform the community about the reforms that is taking place. It won't do any good if there's no collaboration there to talk about what's being reformed if the community doesn't understand the reforming of it and have the accurate information so they can act accordingly as it relates to a collaboration. Another thing,
Pastor Moore, you said something powerful right there, and I don't want the audience to miss that. I am one that embraces this moment. I really do. This discord that we're seeing across our country and even here locally is good for law enforcement. It is good for community because, as a 22-year veteran of the police department, I thought, well, we're doing pretty good. We have some rough patches, but for the most part, we're doing pretty good. But what this experience has taught me is that we're not.
No.
Not just us, but law enforcement in general. And we have to get more entrenched, more interlaced with our community so that we're policing in a way, we're policing with them. We have to get to that point. And these discussions that we're having now are really revealing that we're not there. And so to me, that's good. I mean, there are more community voices. Now, as a police department, it's a bit taxing because we're hearing it from, political, we're hearing it from community, we're hearing it from grassroots and nonprofits. And so we're getting it at all different angles.
Well, you're getting it, and
I wish it was straight.
Right. I have no problem saying this. I think you're getting it more from the community. I don't know if Jackson would agree with this, for the community than you are from the political aspect of it. The political aspect of it just woke up about 7-8 days ago and started doing some things and talking about this particular situation. So I believe you're getting it more from the community, which is better than the political establishment because you're going to be governing and working with the community in many cases.
I agree.
Deputy Chief, was there any consideration given our neighbors to the north, Lawrence, the city of Lawrence, as I understand it, their cameras continuously roll, so the officers don't have to worry about turning them on and turning them off. What was the rationale with our police department, our local government, to give the officers that privilege?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Our cameras do the same. So they are always continuously rolling and recording 30 seconds or two. So if something were to happen, now it doesn't have audio, but it is visually recording. So it is always recording 30 seconds ahead. It's just that it's, the storage is the real issue. As you start to deploy 1,100 cameras, and really that's not enough cameras for the agency. Really, we need probably about 1,600 to outfit every officer.
If I could help you with, I can't help you with it, but I can suggest, it really boils down when he talks about the storage dollars.
That's exactly right.
It's a budget issue now.
So,
and that's why it's set on the shelf the first time after the pilot, the second time after the pilot, and then when the Reed thing went down, we had to get it out again.
Well,
I don't agree with that, but
we're out of time. We're out of time. We've got 1:20 left.
let me, because I think it is important to clarify. We actually had in our budget, the mayor and city county council allocated the monies for body cameras actually in this year's budget. We got hit with COVID, and so that threw us off a little bit. Then we had the Deshaun Reed, and that sped up everything. So we had always intended to have body cameras on the street by September of 2020. The Deshaun Reed just kind of sped that process up.
My point.
All right, Deputy Chief, thank you so much for joining us on today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for having me.
God bless and Godspeed to IMPD and you as well.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be back in just a bit with the rundown. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we want to thank you for joining us. I also want to thank our sponsors, Lee Kosel and Crowley. If you need help, they can help you.
Yes, and you can also go to Fervent Care Christian Academy to get your child started in early child development. Not only that, Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes and the Marion County
Health Department.
Yeah.
We thank our sponsors so much. And joining us, Curtis Baker is with us on this afternoon or this evening as well. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, guys. And it was a great show. I think we learned a lot from Deputy Chief Kendall Adams. Didn't have a lot of time to go over a lot of things, but I do think we got a lot of information. But I want to say next week, we want to bring on Marion County Sheriff Kerry Forrestal will be one of our guests. And now also after that, we're looking for Alicia Johnson, the IPS superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools.
Still the largest school district in Indiana.
It sure is. Jackson's the largest, and they finally have their program out of how they're going to open and reopen schools. But to have her on is going to give reassurance to these parents, what's really happening, and it's going to be a great opportunity to talk with her. And not only that, but we want to see how COVID is being handled at the Marion County Jail, which is going to be phenomenal.
Absolutely. Oh, I have another announcement to make. A good friend of ours, Dr. Virginia Kane, will be having her own show, actually starting before you guys come on. And so she'll be in the 5 o'clock hour called Medically Speaking, hosted by Dr. Virginia Kane. So we look forward to her in August, August the 1st, I believe, August the 5th, August 1st, the first Sunday in August. She'll be starting. So
where you got that idea from?
Somebody wears his shirt with an emblem on it all the time. I'm not sure.
He has a shirt with an emblem on it.
That's his church name.
There.
OMBC.
Yeah.
But let me get back to Kendall Adams, if I could. Kendall Adams had some good information. They're doing their best to make sure body cams are working in the community. But I think we all agreed in that meeting, Jackson, that body cams is not a cure-all. If you're going to heal, a sick city, I think the healing's in the city, and that means that you got to find the right prescription within that city that the city can take in order to heal it. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's where I am.
Well, we'll let that be the last word, and we'll see you all next time.